you qualified.
Yes.
Spoiler. And went into practicing, whereby you were essentially representing, you were a criminal barrister, but you were operating for you weren't representing a firm, you were representing...
So I worked in-house for a firm, and I did paralegal work to start with before I got offered pupillage, and then that's when another sort of part of my life started. So yeah, but criminal defence work is...
Criminal defence, yeah. So, but as a barrister, you're self-employed, you are essentially at the mercy of the timelines of court, you are at the mercy of the work required.
There's no structure. You're just reliant on a pigeonhole. And when the brief comes in, so much so that actually at bar school, and this is another thing about discipline, super simple, but the bar school, one of the exams was, you've got a pigeonhole and you just have to wait for your brief to arrive. Yes, it stages all a bit cringe, but the point is you could go in and out of bar school. No one lived in bar school. You'd have to go in, or do you camp out? What's the technique? Do you go at the end of the day, but your brief might have been there 5 hours before and you've wasted 5 hours? So even that's just kind of like playing with your brain. No one's going to tell you. So... And then you get the brief, but invariably they dropped it towards the tail end of the day.
Is it designed that way to test you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No doubt about it. So the brief's in the pigeonhole, you take that, and the level of work required to do it, I don't think, probably for human rights or whatever the reasons are, they can call it an overnight exam, but you are up all night. If you need to get through it, and 100% they would have put something in that brief that is designed to catch you out if you do not read it all. So that was an overnight exam, and again, tenacity-wise... But I'd already worked night shifts as a kid all the time, doing security work and goodness knows what work. So late nights, finishing at 4 o'clock in the morning, power napping for 20 minutes. None of that stuff was a problem, really. Not enjoyable, but I've got the brain and the mindset to do it. I don't mind doing it. I put myself through it and happily do so. So many other people on the course were just wet wipes. Oh, I'm not even mean to sleep. I've only had 3 hours sleep. Do you know what I mean? So like just made of different kind of fabric, I guess, in that respect. But again, it's all things that you touched on. It's cross-transferable across different things in life. And I think when you go through anything, and that's nothing compared to what people go through in daily struggle, that's just a point about sleep and work ethic. But when you go through anything in life that's slightly elevated in terms of difficulty level or stress level or testing you, it makes normal life relatively easy. And contextualize everything. And I think that's so important. I feel that people that haven't necessarily been tested in any element or don't necessarily put themselves in those positions, baseline life is quite hard to deal with for a lot of people. But someone like yourself or me will look at their issue or the thing that's catastrophic to them, and in relation to events that we can cast back to, it's nothing. And I think perspective is really, really key. And I think constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone is only ever going to be a good thing. I know people say life's too short, and I appreciate that. I'm not working myself to complete death, but I genuinely think it means that on a daily basis, irrespective of what happens, subject to a certain few things around health and anything else that's a non-negotiable, it's only a little sort of tickle rather than a slap or a punch to me.
I think it's important to touch on the relative scale of it, because I think the get uncomfortable being uncomfortable thing has been done to death. And
what do you think about that, though?
I think it's entirely valid, but I think there's been cliches attached to it that mean that people get comfortable doing things that used to be uncomfortable to them and then get comfortable doing them. But it's it's a ladder.
Yes.
And I've seen enough ice baths on high-rise balconies in East London done for years at a time.
No comment, but I'm sick of it.
That's easy now. That's easy now. But it's a case of, I think the powerful thing here is that for any individual at any point in their life, if you turn up the dial 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 point, whilst somebody that you're sitting next to, let's say in the bar examination, could be 30 points higher than you, if you can just look 1 point, 2 point, 3 points higher day by day, you can stack that over time. And I think resilience going dormant is something that I've had to wrestle with over the years, whereby I've done big events and there's been a bit of a come down effect from the emotional work up towards that, and then a bit of a decompression that I've then refocused on maybe shorter distance or faster or heavier things, and the demands are very, very different. And I feel that there's times when I go outside in wind and rain and I'm like, wait a minute, what? Fuck?
Yeah.
You're a little bit uncomfortable and intimidated by this. Why is that? And then I'm like, well, you haven't been actually exposing yourself to this that often. So then it's reacclimatizing to that.
Yeah.
But it swings both ways, whereby it's essentially, at one end of the spectrum, don't get complacent.
No.
But at the other end of the spectrum, the power that you have to do one hard thing today to make you slightly better tomorrow, and then more importantly, free you up to do another hard thing the day after, is amazing. But comparing yourself to what other people are doing is your measure of discomfort is the wrong way to do it. It should all be through the lens of your current situation and how you can move that forwards incrementally.
Agreed. And I think also that the lens that we perceive other people's achievements through no two people are the same in many different ways in terms of the commitments in life and all the other ancillaries, the holistic elements that we don't look at. So constantly striving to be someone else, whether it's chasing their material or their physical, is slightly misleading because you're not actually comparing something that's comparable or necessarily actually achievable. Or is it going to make you happy? And what makes you happy and what makes you content and fulfilled doesn't mean that if I try and go and do an Ironman now, I'm going to get the same gratification from it. So there isn't a single narrative, but like you say, as an overall theme and trend, push yourself.
Yeah, it's
simple as that.
Yeah,
and if that's pushing yourself to be the quickest barista in the world, go and do that. I've got no judgment. You don't have to try and bench press or out bench press me. I don't care what you lift. I couldn't care less. I'm not watching you. So go and do what makes you happy, but don't give everything 2% and feel like you've underachieved, because that's the correct feeling because you're given 2%.